The meeting room of the Galactic Naval Academy was quiet, except for the sound of Commander Veltaris tapping her crystalline fingers against the table. She was tall and made entirely of a material that looked like living glass. Her species came from Luminara Prime, a peaceful world where the biggest danger was occasionally slipping on smooth rocks. Right now she looked angry. "This is completely unacceptable," she said, pushing a holographic file across the black table. The blue light flickered and showed information about a new applicant. "I refuse to allow this." Instructor Quill leaned forward to look at the file. He was covered in soft feathers, colored in shades of blue and green. His people came from Serenus, a world of endless gardens and gentle rain. He made a chirping sound that meant he was worried. "Oh my! This candidate is from Earth. That's a Class 12 Deathworld. The regulations are very clear about this." "Exactly," Veltaris said. She stood up and her body made small clinking sounds as she moved. Regulation 7.3.4 states that no cadet from a world classified as Death Category 10 or above can enroll without special permission from the Council. This human should never have been allowed to apply. Admiral Thornax sat at the end of the table. He was old, with thick gray skin and 6 eyes that had seen many wars. His species had survived 3 different attempts to wipe them out completely. He looked at the file with interest instead of fear. "The human passed every test we gave him. Look at these scores. Spatial reasoning, tactical analysis, physical endurance. He didn't just pass. He got the highest scores we've ever recorded." Veltaris made a sound like breaking ice. "That doesn't matter. Do you know what Earth is like? The gravity is 1.2 times our standard. The atmosphere has oxygen levels that would make most species catch fire. There are creatures on that world that can kill in seconds. Tiny insects that spread deadly diseases. Large predators that hunt in packs. Even the plants are dangerous. Some of them can poison you just by touching them. The mortality rate on Earth is terrible," Quill added, his feathers ruffling with stress. "I read the report. Humans die from their own weather. They have storms that destroy entire cities, temperature swings that can freeze or cook them, and they call these things normal. It's madness." Thornax pulled up more information on his own screen. His thick fingers moved slowly but carefully. "It says here that humans have an average lifespan of 70 to 80 standard years, despite all those dangers. They've survived on that world for over 200,000 years. They've built civilizations, created art, developed technology, all while living on a planet that's actively trying to kill them." "Which proves my point," Veltaris insisted. "They're too fragile. If a human can barely survive on their own world, how can they possibly handle Academy training? We have exercises on worlds rated Death Category 6. That would kill this human in hours. Or," Thornax said slowly, "it proves they're tougher than we think. Maybe surviving a Category 12 world makes Category 6 seem easy." The room went silent. Quill's feathers stood on end. Veltaris's crystalline body flickered with different colors, showing her emotions shifting rapidly between anger and confusion. "You can't be serious," she finally said. "You want to admit a human to the Academy? A creature from a death world? What happens when the gravity is too much? What happens when they get sick from our food? What happens when they can't keep up with the training?" Thornax leaned back in his chair. It creaked under his weight. "What happens if we're wrong about them? The scores don't lie, Veltaris. This human, this Dohyun, he's qualified. More than qualified. I think we should at least ask the Council for permission." "This is a waste of time," Veltaris said. But she didn't say no. 3 weeks passed. The Council debated for hours. Some agreed with Veltaris that it was too dangerous. Others were curious, like Thornax. In the end, they made a decision. They would allow one human to attend the Academy as an experiment. If he failed, no other humans would ever be accepted. If he succeeded, they would reconsider the regulations. The day Do-Yun arrived at Academy Station Xerxes, everyone was watching. The transport shuttle docked with a soft hiss and the doors opened. Do-Hyun stepped out, and many of the watching instructors were surprised. He was short compared to most species at the Academy. He stood about 1.7 meters tall, with a compact build that looked sturdy rather than weak. His hair was black and cut short. His eyes were dark and constantly moving, taking in every detail of his surroundings. He carried only one small bag. What made several instructors uncomfortable was his smile. It was small but confident, like he knew a secret that nobody else did. Do-Hyun walked through the station with steady steps. Other species moved out of his way, not because he was threatening, but because there was something about him that made them nervous. He didn't look dangerous, but he moved like someone who was very aware of everything around him. The orientation ceremony was held in the Grand Hall, a massive room that could hold thousands of beings. Director Keseva floated at the front. She was a being made of gas, contained in a shimmering field. Her voice echoed through the hall. "Welcome, cadets. You are now part of the 847 students from 214 different worlds. You represent the best your civilizations have to offer. This academy will challenge you beyond anything you have experienced before. The training will be hard. The tests will be difficult. Many of you will want to quit. Only the strongest, the smartest, and the most determined will graduate." Do-hyun's smile grew a little wider. He stood among beings twice his size, 3 times his size, beings that glowed, beings that floated, beings with multiple limbs and eyes. He didn't look scared. He looked excited. After the ceremony, Do-hyun went to his assigned room. The door slid open and he found his roommate already inside. Taijin was an aquatic being from the water world of Thalassos. His skin was pale blue and slightly wet. He had gill slits on his neck that opened and closed as he breathed. Large eyes turned to look at Do-hyun, and those eyes went wide with shock. "The gravity," Taijin gasped. His voice sounded like water flowing over rocks. "It's set to 1.0 standard. That's crushing me." Do-hyun looked at the environmental controls on the wall. "Oh, sorry about that. I didn't realize." He quickly adjusted the settings. The gravity dropped to 0.7 standard. Taijin immediately stood up straighter, his breathing easier. "You live in that normally?" Taijin asked, amazed. "That gravity would break my bones in days." Do-hyun set his bag down on his bed. "Actually, my homeworld is 1.2 standard gravity. I set it to 1.0 because I thought that would be normal here. I didn't want to be difficult on my first day." Taijin stared at him. His gill slits fluttered rapidly, which was a sign of extreme stress in his species. "Your world has even more gravity? How do you even move?" "You get used to it," Do-hyun said with a shrug. "It makes your muscles and bones stronger. My species evolved in high gravity. It's normal for us." "Normal," Taijin repeated quietly. He looked at his new roommate with a mixture of respect and fear. "What else is normal on your world?" Do-hyun started unpacking his bag. "Well, we have these things called mosquitoes. They're tiny flying insects that bite you and drink your blood. Some of them spread diseases that can kill you. Then there are spiders, snakes, sharks, bears, lions, crocodiles. Oh, and other humans are probably the most dangerous thing on Earth." Taijin felt faint. "I need to lie down. Are you okay?" Do-hyun asked, genuinely concerned. "I'm fine," Taijin said weakly. "I just need to process the fact that my roommate comes from a nightmare world." Do-hyun laughed. It was a warm, friendly sound. "Earth isn't that bad once you know how to handle it. You just have to be careful and pay attention. Most things that want to kill you give you warnings first." "Most things?" Taijin's voice went higher. "Not all things? Well, some things are sneaky. But that's what makes life interesting." Taijin decided right then that he would never, ever visit Earth. But he also decided that having a human as a roommate might be the safest thing at this academy. If Do-hyun could survive a world like Earth, he could probably handle anything the academy threw at them. That night, as Do-hyun slept peacefully in gravity that would exhaust most species, Taijin watched him and wondered what the academy had gotten itself into by accepting a human. The first month at the academy was designed to make weak cadets quit. Commander Velteris made sure everyone knew this on the first day of training. She stood in front of the assembled cadets with her arms crossed. Her crystalline body reflected the harsh lights of the training hall. "Many of you think you are special because you were accepted here," she said coldly. "You are not special. You are barely adequate. This month will prove whether you deserve to stay or if you should go home to your comfortable worlds." Her eyes, which glowed with an internal light, fixed on Do-hyun. "Some of you come from worlds that have made you soft. Others come from worlds that have made you think you are strong. Both types will fail if they do not adapt." Do-hyun stood at attention with the other cadets. He kept his expression neutral, but Taijin, standing beside him, could see the small smile at the corner of his friend's mouth. The first real test came on day 3. Physical conditioning. Velteris led them to the outer ring of the station. "You will run 3 laps around this ring," she announced. "This is standard procedure for all first-year cadets. The distance is 15 kilometers. The gravity is set to 0.8 standard. You have 2 hours to complete this. Most of the cadets looked nervous. 15 kilometers was a long distance. Some species were not built for running. Others were strong but had no endurance. Begin, Valteris commanded. The cadets started running. Some sprinted at first, trying to show off their speed. Others paced themselves, knowing the distance was long. Dohyun started at a steady jog that looked almost casual. By the end of the first lap, half the cadets were struggling. Their breathing was heavy. Some were limping. A few had already stopped and were walking. By the end of the second lap, 60% of the class needed medical attention. The station's medical team waited at checkpoints with emergency equipment. Cadets were collapsing from exhaustion, dehydration, and muscle failure. Do-hyun finished all 3 laps in 1 hour and 12 minutes. He crossed the finish line first, barely breathing hard. His shirt was wet with sweat, but he wasn't gasping for air like the others. He looked like he had just finished a light warm-up. Valteris checked her timepiece. Her crystalline fingers tightened. "Acceptable," she said coldly. But inside she was furious. The human had made it look easy. Taejin finished last among those who completed the run. He collapsed at the finish line, his gills working frantically to pull in enough oxygen. "How?" he gasped at Do-hyun. "How are you not dead?" Do-hyun handed him a water container. "Humans are persistence hunters. Our ancestors would chase animals for hours, sometimes days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. We're built for endurance. 15 kilometers is just a morning run for us." "Your species is insane," Taejin wheezed. The academic tests started the next week. Valteris assigned a xenobiology exam that was famous for being nearly impossible. The cadets had to memorize 4,000 different species classifications, including their biology, homeworlds, dietary needs, and environmental requirements. They had 3 weeks to study. Do-hyun sat in the examination hall next to Minji. She was an insectoid from Hivara, with a thin body covered in a smooth exoskeleton. Her large compound eyes could see in multiple spectrums. Her species had photographic memories and could process information faster than most computers. Everyone expected her to get the highest score. The exam lasted 4 hours. When the results came back, Minji had scored 98 out of 100. Perfect scores were nearly impossible, because the exam included trick questions and obscure species. Do-hyun, also scored 98 out of 100. Minji approached him after class. Her antennae twitched with curiosity. "How did you memorize all that information?" She clicked. Her species communicated through a combination of sounds and pheromones. "My people have perfect memory. You are human. Your brain should not be able to process that much data." Do-hyun closed his study materials. "On Earth, we have to memorize huge amounts of information just to survive. We need to know which plants are poisonous and which are safe to eat, which animals are venomous and which are not, which mushrooms will feed us and which will kill us in minutes, which insects spread disease and which are harmless. We have thousands of species that can kill humans, so we learn to identify them all." Minji's antennae drooped. "Your entire world is trying to kill you?" "Pretty much," Do-hyun said cheerfully. "The plants, the animals, the weather, the microorganisms. Even other humans sometimes, which is why we also study history, psychology, and combat tactics." "I am never visiting your world," Minji decided. The combat training revealed something that shocked everyone even more. Instructor Kragnor was a massive being from Graviton 7, a heavy world where the gravity was 2.5 times standard. His species were born warriors with thick muscles and bones like steel. He stood 3 meters tall and weighed as much as a small vehicle. At the academy, he was the combat instructor and everyone feared him. "Combat is not about size," he roared at the assembled cadets. "It is about skill, speed, and intelligence, but mostly skill." He demonstrated several techniques, moving with surprising grace for his size. "Pair up with your own species. We do not want injuries on the first day." Do-hyun raised his hand. "Sir, I am the only human here." Kragnor's 4 eyes all focused on the small cadet. A grin spread across his face, showing teeth like daggers. "Then you will train with me, human. Try not to break too easily." The other cadets backed away, giving them space. Taejin looked worried. Minji's antennae were flat against her head in concern. Everyone knew this would be a disaster. Kragnor outweighed Do-hyun by at least 200 kilograms. One hit from those massive fists would send the human to the medical bay. They began. Kragnor moved first, a testing jab that was still fast enough to blur. Do-hyun slipped to the side, the fist missing by centimeters. Kragnor threw another punch, then another. Do-hyun dodged them all, his movements economical and precise. You are fast, Kragnor acknowledged. But running will not help you in real combat. I am not running, Do-hyun said. I am waiting. Kragnor lunged forward with a grab, trying to catch the human in a hold that would end the match. Do-hyun ducked under the reaching arms, stepped inside Kragnor's guard, and moved with sudden explosive speed. He grabbed the instructor's arm, turned his hip, and used Kragnor's own momentum against him. The massive instructor flipped through the air and crashed onto the mat with a boom that shook the entire training hall. Before Kragnor could recover, Do-hyun had moved behind him and locked an arm around the thick neck in a submission hold. The human's legs wrapped around the instructor's torso, controlling his body. The entire class stood in shocked silence. Kragnor tapped the mat 3 times. The signal for surrender. Do-hyun immediately released him and stepped back, offering a hand to help the instructor up. Kragnor took the hand and pulled himself to his feet. He looked at Do-hyun with all 4 eyes wide. How? I have trained for 30 years. I have defeated champions from 20 worlds. How did a small human defeat me in 3 minutes? Do-hyun brushed off his uniform. Humans evolved as both hunters and prey. We learned to fight creatures bigger and stronger than us. We invented dozens of combat systems over thousands of years. Judo uses an opponent's weight against them. Taekwondo focuses on speed and precision. Jiu-jitsu is about leverage and control. Boxing teaches footwork and timing. Krav Maga is about ending fights quickly. He paused, then added, Plus, humans have been fighting each other for our entire history. Wars, duels, tournaments, street fights. We got really good at it because we had to. Kragnor started laughing. It was a deep, booming sound. I have gained new respect for Deathworlders today. He looked at the rest of the class. Let this be a lesson. Size is not everything. This human is half my weight, but twice as skilled. After class, Taejin approached Do-hyun carefully. Is there anything you are not good at? Do-hyun thought about it. I am terrible at singing, and I cannot regrow limbs like some species can. If I lose an arm, it is gone forever. That is horrifying, Taejin said. That is why we are very careful not to lose limbs, Do-hyun replied with a smile. That night in their shared room, Taejin asked the question that was bothering him. Why did you come here? You could have stayed on Earth, built a life there. Why come to the academy where everyone thinks you will fail? Do-hyun lay on his bed looking at the ceiling. The lights were dim, set to night mode. Because Earth taught me how to survive. But I want to learn how to thrive. The galaxy is huge and full of wonders. I want to see it all. I want to help protect it. And maybe I want to show everyone that humans are not just survivors. We can be heroes too. Taejin was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I think you will succeed. I think you will change everything. Do-hyun smiled in the darkness. I hope so. Commander Veltaris watched the day's training recordings in her office. She watched Do-hyun defeat Kragnor again and again, studying every movement. Her crystalline fingers drummed on her desk. Impossible, she muttered. But the evidence was right in front of her. The human was exceeding every expectation. He was not just surviving the academy. He was dominating it. And that worried her more than anything. The midterm survival exercise was the most important test of the first year. Every cadet had to pass it to continue at the academy. Director Kesava gathered all 847 cadets in the main assembly hall to explain the exercise. Her form floated above the stage, a cloud of gas held together by a shimmering energy field. Her voice echoed through the room. The survival exercise is a tradition that has continued for over 300 years. You will be taken to Sanctuary 9, a nature preserve carefully maintained for training purposes. You will have minimal equipment. You must survive for 72 hours using your skills and knowledge. Images of Sanctuary 9 appeared on the screens around the hall. It showed forests with gentle streams, meadows filled with flowers and small animals that looked peaceful. The weather data showed mild temperatures and light rain. This is not a competition, Kesva continued. You will work in groups of 10. Your goal is to keep everyone safe and healthy, help each other, share resources, demonstrate the cooperation that is essential for service in the Galactic Navy. Most cadets looked relieved. Sanctuary 9 was classified as Death Category 2, which meant it was only slightly more dangerous than a garden. The biggest threats were mild weather changes and the possibility of eating the wrong plant. Do-hyun raised his hand. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. Whenever the human raised his hand, something interesting happened. Yes, Cadet Dohyun. Kesava's voice held a note of caution. Is there a more advanced option for this exercise? Dohyun asked politely. The hall went completely silent. Taejin, sitting next to Dohyun, grabbed his friend's arm and hissed, "What are you doing?" Kesava's gaseous form rippled with confusion. More advanced? The exercise is standardized for all first-year cadets. Dohyun stood up so everyone could hear him clearly. I understand, Director. But Sanctuary 9 is rated Death Category 2. That is basically a vacation resort for my species. No offense meant, but it would not challenge me at all. Earth is Category 12. I have survived worse than Sanctuary 9 in my backyard. Commander Veltaris, who was standing at the side of the hall, saw her opportunity. She stepped forward with a smile that looked dangerous. You want a real challenge, Cadet? Very well. You will do your survival exercise on Krell 4. The assembly hall erupted in shocked whispers and gasps. Even Kesava's form flickered with surprise. Commander, Krell 4 is rated Death Category 8. We only use it for elite special forces training. Trained soldiers have died there. The human asked for a challenge, Veltaris said smoothly. Krell 4 will provide one. Unless, of course, Cadet Dohyun would like to withdraw his request. Every eye turned to Dohyun. Taejin was pulling on his arm, trying to get him to sit down and apologize. Minji's antennae were flat against her head in distress. Dohyun smiled. Krell 4 sounds perfect, Commander. Thank you for the opportunity. Veltaris had not expected that response. Her crystalline face showed surprise for just a moment before returning to cold satisfaction. Excellent. You will go alone, of course. The exercise remains 72 hours. Try to survive. After the assembly, Dohyun was surrounded by worried friends. Taejin was nearly hysterical. Are you insane? Krell 4 has killed soldiers who trained for years. It has lightning storms, toxic zones, and predators that can tear through armor. It also does not have mosquitoes, hippos, or Australia. Dohyun replied calmly. I will be fine. What is Australia? Minji asked. A continent on Earth where everything is even more deadly than normal, Dohyun explained. The spiders there can kill you. The snakes can kill you. The jellyfish can kill you. Even some of the snails can kill you. Australians are the toughest humans because they survive all that. Your world makes no sense, Taejin moaned. 3 days later, 2 transport ships left the academy. One carried 837 cadets to Sanctuary 9. The other carried 1 human to Krell 4. The monitoring team set up their equipment in the observation room. They would track Dohyun's progress through satellites and remote cameras. Commander Veltaris sat in the command chair, ready to watch the human fail. The transport ship dropped Dohyun on Krell 4 and immediately left. The planet was dark under heavy clouds. Rain fell in sheets and lightning cracked across the sky. The temperature was below freezing and the wind howled through jagged rock formations. Dohyun stood on a flat area of stone, wearing only standard academy survival gear. He had a knife, a water container, a fire starter, and a small medical kit. He looked around at the hostile environment and took a deep breath. Just like camping in Norway, he said to himself, maybe a bit windier. The first thing he did was find shelter. He moved quickly through the rocky terrain, avoiding the areas where toxic gas vented from cracks in the ground. His eyes scanned constantly, reading the environment the way his ancestors had read jungles and savannas. He found a cave that was protected from the wind and rain. He checked it carefully for predators, using techniques passed down through thousands of years of human survival experience. The cave was empty. He set up a basic camp inside, using rocks to create a fire pit. Getting fire started was harder in the rain, but Dohyun had practiced this many times on Earth. He found dry materials inside the cave, created a small shelter for the fire, and used his fire starter efficiently. Within an hour, he had warmth and light. The monitoring team watched in silence. He found shelter and made fire in 1 hour, one observer noted. That is faster than most special forces teams. Next, Dohyun needed water. The rain was constant, but he did not know if it was safe to drink. He set up a collection system using his water container and some flat rocks. Then he boiled the water over his fire to kill any harmful organisms. This was basic survival knowledge for humans, taught to children in schools. Food was the next priority. Dohyun ventured out of his cave, moving carefully through the storm. He studied the plants, looking for signs of edibility. He used tests that humans had developed over millennia, He rubbed leaves on his skin to check for reactions. He touched them to his lips to test for burning or numbing. He knew which colors and patterns usually meant poison and which meant food. He found several plants that passed his tests. He also set simple traps for small animals, using techniques that were older than human civilization. The traps were clever and efficient, designed to catch without harming unnecessarily. By the end of the first day, Do-hyun had shelter, fire, clean water, and food. He had also created a detailed mental map of the area around his cave. On the second day, something happened that shocked the monitoring team. A predator approached Do-hyun's cave. It was massive, standing 4 meters tall with 6 legs and armored skin. Its mouth had 3 rows of teeth and acid dripped from its jaws. These creatures had killed 7 soldiers during the last Special Forces exercise. Do-hyun saw it coming from a distance. Instead of running or hiding, he studied it. He watched how it moved, what it paid attention to, how it hunted. Then he did something that seemed crazy. He made himself visible and stood his ground. When the predator charged, he used fire. He had prepared torches and threw them at the creature. Fire was a primordial fear for most animals. The predator stopped, confused by the flames. Do-hyun shouted and made himself seem larger, using tactics that worked on bears and big cats on Earth. He threw rocks, not to hurt, but to annoy. He showed the predator that attacking him would be difficult and painful. The predator circled, uncertain. This small creature was acting like something dangerous, not like prey. After several tense minutes, the predator left to find easier food. He scared it away, an observer whispered in awe. He scared away a Krell predator. On the third day, Do-hyun actually improved his camp. He built better shelters for his fire and supplies. He found more food sources and identified 47 different edible plants. He created a water filtration system using sand, charcoal, and cloth. He even domesticated one of the smaller predators by feeding it scraps and showing it that his camp was a safe territory. He called the creature Pepper. It looked like a cross between a wolf and a lizard with scales and fur. It followed him around and Do-hyun scratched it behind the ears like it was a dog. The monitoring team could not believe what they were seeing. One observer finally said what everyone was thinking. He's not just surviving. He is comfortable. Look, he built a hammock. He is taking a nap. It was true. Do-hyun had woven plant fibers into a hammock and was sleeping peacefully while Pepper guarded the cave entrance. On a Death Category 8 world, the human was relaxing like he was on vacation. Commander Veltaris watched the screens with an expression that was hard to read. She had expected the human to struggle, maybe even need emergency extraction. Instead, he was thriving. When the 72 hours ended, the extraction ship arrived. Do-hyun had packed his few belongings and created a detailed guide carved into stone. The guide showed future trainees where to find water, which plants were safe, and how to avoid the predators. He walked out of his cave with Pepper on a leash made from woven vines. He had actually gained weight during the exercise because he had found so much food. His skin looked healthy, and he seemed more rested than when he had arrived. The extraction pilot stared at him. "You brought back a predator?" "His name is Pepper," Do-hyun said. "Can I keep him?" "I trained him. He is very friendly now." The pilot did not know what to say. "I need to ask the Admiral." Back at the academy, the monitoring room was filled with instructors watching the recordings. Admiral Thornax sat in the center, and when he saw Do-hyun emerge happy and healthy with a tamed predator, he started laughing. He laughed for 10 minutes straight, his large body shaking with mirth. Other instructors stared at him in confusion. Finally, he caught his breath and wiped his eyes. "Do you understand now?" he asked the room. "This is what a real Deathworlder is. Not someone who barely survives. Someone who conquers." Commander Veltaris said nothing. She simply watched the screen as Do-hyun scratched Pepper's ears and smiled at the camera. The ISS Endeavour was the Academy's premier training vessel. It was sleek and powerful, designed to teach cadets real space operations. Commander Veltaris led this particular exercise, with 40 cadets aboard for a routine patrol of a nearby sector. Everything was going perfectly until it was not. The spatial anomaly appeared without warning. Space itself seemed to twist and fold. The ship's system screamed alerts. The pilot tried to steer away, but the anomaly pulled them in like a whirlpool pulling down a leaf. "Brace for impact," Veltaris shouted. The Endeavour tumbled through distorted space and crashed onto an unknown planet's surface. The landing was violent. Metal screamed as the hull scraped across rock. Systems exploded in showers of sparks. When the ship finally stopped moving, emergency lights flickered on in the smoke-filled corridors. Veltaris pulled herself up from the command chair. Her crystalline body had several cracks running through it. Status report. The response was chaos. Cadets were injured. 3 sections of the hull were breached and leaking atmosphere. The communications array was destroyed. Life support was failing. And worst of all, they had no idea where they were. The science officer, a tentacled being named Corin, worked frantically at his damaged console. I am running planetary scans now, Commander. The atmosphere is breathable but toxic for most species. High radiation levels, extreme weather forming. And the gravity? What about the gravity? Veltaris demanded. It is 1.8 times standard, Corin said quietly. The command deck went silent. For most species present, 1.8 gravity was crushing. They could survive it for short periods, but extended exposure would break bones and damage internal organs. The automatic classification system chimed. A mechanical voice announced, Planetary Death Classification, Category 11, Extreme Danger. Immediate evacuation recommended, Category 11. Only 1 step below Earth. Panic spread through the cadets. Some were already struggling to breathe in the heavy gravity. Others were injured from the crash. The stronger species tried to help the weaker ones, but everyone was scared. Veltaris tried to maintain order. We establish a perimeter around the ship. We stay inside the intact sections. We wait for rescue. Do not, under any circumstances, venture outside. Commander, Corin interrupted. Sensors show large predatory life forms approaching. Distance 3 kilometers and closing. How large? 15 to 20 meters in length. Multiple contacts. At least 30 individuals. The situation was getting worse by the second. They were stranded on a Deathworld. The ship was falling apart. Dangerous creatures were approaching, and rescue could take days to arrive. That was when Do-hyun spoke up. He had been quiet until now, assessing the situation. Commander, with respect, waiting for rescue will kill us. Veltaris turned to him, her cracked features showing anger. Cadet, you will follow orders. The hull is breached in 3 sections, Do-hyun interrupted calmly. We are losing atmosphere. The gravity is already crushing half the crew. The predators will reach us in less than an hour. If we stay in this ship, we die. We need to adapt to this environment. Adapt to a Category 11 death world? Veltaris's voice was sharp with disbelief. That is impossible. Do-hyun looked around at the frightened faces of his fellow cadets. Taejin was struggling to stand in the heavy gravity. Minji's exoskeleton was cracking under the pressure. Others were gasping for air or clutching injuries. He made a decision. No, it is not impossible. It is difficult. But humans have been doing difficult things on death worlds for hundreds of thousands of years. He stepped forward. Give me command of the survival operation. I can get us through this. Veltaris stared at him. Every instinct told her to refuse. But she looked at her failing ship and her dying cadets and realized she had no better options. What do you need? Do-hyun's expression changed. The friendly cadet disappeared, replaced by something older and harder. This was the face of a species that had clawed its way to the top of Earth's food chain through intelligence, determination, and sheer stubborn refusal to die. I need everyone who can move to follow my instructions exactly. No arguments. No hesitation. We have maybe 5 hours before this becomes unrecoverable. Let me work. Over the next 6 hours, Do-hyun orchestrated a transformation that seemed impossible. He moved through the ship like a force of nature, giving orders, solving problems, and teaching survival skills that his species had refined over millennia. First, he identified stable ground outside the ship using Earth geological principles. He looked at the color and composition of soil, the way water drained, and the presence of certain plants. This area is solid, he declared. We set up camp here. He organized teams based on species strengths. The heavy worlders like Kragnor handled construction despite the gravity. The aquatic species managed water collection and filtration. The insectoids used their small size to retrieve supplies from damaged sections. Everyone had a job. For the cadets suffering from the high gravity, Do-hyun designed support structures from ship debris. He created harnesses and braces that distributed weight and reduced strain. My species developed similar equipment for people with injuries, he explained while fitting a support frame on Taejin. It is not comfortable, but it will keep you alive. Water was the next critical issue. The planet had water sources, but they needed purification. Do-hyun showed them filtration methods using sand, charcoal, and cloth. He demonstrated boiling techniques. He even identified several plants whose roots could be used to clean water chemically. How do you know all this? Minji asked, amazed. Every human learns basic survival skills, Do-hyun replied while building a filtration system. We have to. Earth has clean water in some places and deadly water in others. You learn the difference or you die. When the predators arrived, everyone froze in terror. The creatures were massive, with armored hides and claws that could shred metal. Their eyes glowed in the dim light and their roars shook the ground. Do-hyun did not freeze. He studied them with the calm focus of a human who descended from hunters. They are pack animals, he observed. Like wolves or lions from Earth, they hunt in coordinated groups. They test prey for weakness. What do we do? Veltaris asked. For the first time, she was asking instead of commanding. We show them that we are not prey, Do-hyun said. We are the apex predator here. He organized a defense using fire, noise, and strategic positioning. He placed the strongest cadets at the front with makeshift weapons and torches. He created loud alarms from ship parts that would disorient the predators. He identified the pack leader by watching their behavior. When the predators charged, Do-hyun led the response. Fire bloomed in front of them. Alarms shrieked. The cadets stood their ground, making themselves look larger and more dangerous than they were. The pack leader hesitated. This was not how prey behaved. Prey ran, prey hid. These strange creatures were standing and fighting back. Do-hyun stepped forward alone, holding a torch. He locked eyes with the pack leader and showed no fear. It was a primal communication that transcended species. He was saying, attacking us will cost you. We will hurt you. We might even kill some of you. Is it worth it? The pack leader made a decision. It turned away and the pack followed. They would find easier prey. The cadets stood in shocked silence as the predators disappeared into the alien forest. Taejin finally gasped. You made them leave. You stared down a 20-meter predator and made it leave. I convinced it we were not worth the effort. Do-hyun corrected. Now we need to make sure they do not come back. He set up feeding stations away from the camp, leaving food scraps at a safe distance. We teach them that this territory belongs to us, but we are not actively hostile. It is the same method humans used to domesticate wolves 30,000 years ago, turn enemies into neutral parties. By the end of the third day, the camp was not just surviving but functioning well. The injured were stable. The cadets had learned to work together in ways their academy training had never taught them. They had rotation schedules for watch duty, water collection, and camp maintenance. Do-hyun even established communication protocols with a nearby herd of herbivores. The large, peaceful creatures had good hearing and would alert the camp to approaching predators. In exchange, the cadets would clear parasites from the herd's feeding grounds. You created a symbiotic relationship with alien animals, Minji observed. In 3 days. Humans are very good at making friends when we need to, Do-hyun replied. We domesticated dogs, cats, horses, cattle, chickens, and dozens of other species. We learned that cooperation is often better than conflict. When the rescue ships finally arrived on day 6, they found something they did not expect. The cadets were not just alive but comfortable. They had established a functioning camp with clean water, organized food storage, and defensive perimeters. Several species were actually disappointed that rescue had arrived. The rescue captain walked through the camp in disbelief. This is a Category 11 world. How are you all healthy? Veltaris approached Do-hyun. Her crystalline body was still cracked, but her expression was different now. I owe you an apology, cadet. I let my prejudice blind me. I thought Deathworlders were weak because they came from harsh environments. I did not understand that harsh environments create the strongest people. Do-hyun smiled. You were trying to protect everyone, Commander. That is a good instinct, but Earth taught me something important. The most dangerous environments do not create victims. They create survivors. And survivors are exactly what the galaxy needs. As the cadets boarded the rescue ships, they carried with them new knowledge and new respect. They had learned that survival was not about having the easiest life. It was about adapting to whatever life threw at you. And they had learned that the human from Earth, the cadet from the Deathworld, was someone you wanted on your side when everything went wrong. The Academy Board met in emergency session 3 days after the rescue. The circular chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. The news of what happened on the Category 11 planet had spread quickly. Now everyone wanted to discuss the implications. Admiral Thornax stood at the center podium. His 6 eyes scanned the assembled council members. For 300 years, we have banned cadets from Deathworlds. We believed they were too fragile to survive academy training. We thought worlds classified Category 10 and above produced weak species that needed protection. He paused, letting his words sink in. We were completely wrong. A council member from Serenus chirped in protest. One incident does not prove. It is not one incident, Thornax interrupted. He activated the holographic display. Images appeared showing Dohyun's achievements. His survival on Krell 4, his combat victory over Kragnor, his academic scores, and finally his leadership during the crash that saved 40 lives. Cadet Dohyun has consistently performed beyond our highest expectations. He has not just survived, he has excelled. He has taught other cadets skills that are not in our curriculum. He has demonstrated that Deathworld species are not weak. They are adaptable, resilient, and innovative. Another council member, a crystalline being like Veltaris, spoke up. But what about the regulations? They exist for good reasons. Deathworld species face higher injury rates, compatibility issues with standard equipment. Those regulations were created by people who never met a Deathworlder, Thornax said firmly. They were based on assumptions, not evidence. The evidence is now clear. Deathworld species have advantages we never considered. They think differently. They solve problems in ways we would never imagine. They survive situations that would kill our best soldiers. The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued for maintaining the ban. Others wanted to open enrollment immediately. The room was divided until a junior officer entered with urgent news. Forgive the interruption, the officer said nervously. We have received a distress call from colony ship Harmony. They crashed on an uncharted world while trying to avoid a meteor storm. Send a rescue team, a council member ordered. We tried, the officer replied. The world is classified as Death Category 13. It is the highest rating we have ever recorded. 3 rescue teams have refused to deploy. They say the environment is too lethal. Nothing can survive there. The room went quiet. Death Category 13 was beyond anything they had dealt with before. It made Krell 4 look like a garden. How many people are on that colony ship? Thornax asked. 300 souls, Admiral. Men, women, children, multiple species. The ship is damaged and will fail within days. Before anyone could respond, a voice came from the back of the chamber. I will go, everyone turned. Dohyun stood there in his cadet uniform. He must have been called to testify about the Category 11 incident. Now he was volunteering for something far more dangerous. Cadet, you have not even graduated, a council member protested. Then field promote me, Dohyun said simply. Those are living beings who need help. That is what the academy is supposed to be about, right? Protecting people, serving the greater good. He stepped forward. I have survived Earth my whole life. I survived Krell 4. I survived a Category 11 world and kept 40 people alive. If anyone can help those colonists, it is someone from a death world. Thornax looked at the human. He saw determination in those dark eyes. The kind of determination that had carried humanity through ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters. The determination of a species that simply refused to give up. Any other volunteers? Thornax asked the room. Taejin stepped forward. I will go. Dohyun has kept me alive this far. I trust him. Minji clicked her mandibles. My species values knowledge. I have learned more from Dohyun than from any textbook. I will go one by one, cadets volunteered. Kragnor. Other students who had trained with Dohyun. Within minutes, a dozen cadets had stepped forward. Thornax made a decision. Ensign Dohyun, you are hereby promoted and given command of this rescue operation. Choose your team. Get those colonists home. 12 hours later, a modified rescue ship dropped through the atmosphere of the most hostile world anyone had ever seen. The planet screamed its hostility in every way. Gravity at 2.1 standard, atmosphere thick with sulfur and other toxins, temperature swings from boiling to freezing within hours, storms that could shred metal, and predators that made Krell 4's creatures look like pets. The colony ship Harmony was broken in half, settled in a valley surrounded by volcanic vents. The 300 colonists huddled inside, terrified and running out of time. Dohyun's team landed nearby. The gravity hit them immediately. Even Kragnor grunted under the weight. Taejin collapsed, and Dohyun had to fit him with a support frame before he could move. This is insane, Taejin gasped. How does anything survive here? The same way humans survived Earth, Dohyun replied, helping his friend stand. By being stubborn and clever. He looked at his team. We have done this before. We know how to read a hostile environment. We know how to adapt. Let us show the galaxy what Deathworlders can do. What followed over the next week became known as the Nexus Prime Rescue. The name came from the planet's classification code, but the rescue itself became legendary. Dohyun and his team did not just evacuate the colonists. They could not. The rescue ships could only take 50 people at a time, and they needed multiple trips. That meant the colonists had to survive on the planet for days. So Dohyun taught them how to survive. He showed them how to identify safe zones using Earth geology. He demonstrated water purification using methods that were thousands of years old. He taught them to build shelters that could withstand the temperature swings. He explained how to read predator behavior and avoid confrontation. Minji used her species' knowledge to catalog every plant and animal. She identified which were dangerous and which could be useful. Taejin, despite the crushing gravity, managed water collection systems. Kragnor led defense teams using tactics that Dohyun had taught him. They turned a Deathworld into a temporary home. The colonists were amazed. There were children who were learning to set up water filters, elderly beings who were memorizing which plants were safe, people from garden worlds who were building fires and crafting tools. You are teaching us to be Deathworlders, one colonist said to Dohyun. I am teaching you to be survivors, Dohyun corrected. Every species can learn these skills. You just need someone to show you. By the time all the colonists were evacuated, something remarkable had happened. The team had established the first permanent research station on a Category 13 world. The methods Dohyun created, drawing from human history and instinct, allowed other species to live and work in an environment that should have killed them instantly. 6 months passed. Dohyun's graduation ceremony was held in the Grand Hall, the same place where Director Kesva had welcomed him on his first day. But now the hall was packed. News of the Nexus Prime Rescue had spread across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see the human graduate. The Academy's regulations had been completely rewritten. Deathworld candidates were no longer banned. They were actively recruited. Applications were flooding in from worlds that had been excluded for centuries. The incoming class included 3 more humans, 2 candidates from Category 11 worlds, and dozens from worlds previously considered too harsh. Dohyun graduated first in his class. Every elite unit in the Galactic Navy offered him a position. But he chose something different. He chose to return to the Academy as an instructor, teaching survival skills and Deathworld adaptation. During his graduation speech, he stood at the podium and looked out at the crowd. He saw Veltaris, who now worked with him to develop new training programs. He saw Thornax, who had believed in him from the start. He saw his friends and fellow cadets. When I first came here, Dohyun began, Commander Veltaris asked me a question. She wanted me to define what makes a Deathworld. I have thought about that question for a long time. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I think we have been looking at it wrong. A Deathworld is not a planet that kills you. It is a planet that teaches you how to live. It forces you to adapt. It makes you think. It pushes you to overcome impossible challenges. He gestured to the assembled cadets. Every species here comes from a world that challenged them. Maybe it was not Category 12 like Earth. Maybe it was only Category 3 or 4. But you all survived your world's tests. You all learned. You all adapted. That makes every one of us a Deathworlder in spirit. His smile widened. The galaxy is a dangerous place. There are hostile environments, deadly creatures, and impossible situations. But here is what I learned at this academy. The galaxy is not dangerous compared to what we can overcome. We are humans. We are Luminarians. We are Thalassians. We are Hiverans. We are survivors from 1,000 different worlds. And together we are unstoppable. He raised his fist. So bring on the Death Category 13 worlds. Bring on the impossible missions. Bring on the challenges that should kill us. Because we will look at them, smile, and ask one simple question. Is that all you have got? The hall erupted in applause. It was not polite Academy applause. It was roaring, stamping, shouting approval. Species from gentle worlds and harsh worlds alike celebrated together. Admiral Thornax watched Dohyun walk across the stage and thought about the future. A future where the galaxy's deadliest challenges would be met not with fear but with courage. A future where Deathworlders from every planet would stand together. A future that looked very bright indeed. Later that night, Do-hyun sat with Taejin and Minji in their favorite spot overlooking the station. They watched stars glitter against the darkness of space. "What will you do now?" Taejin asked. "Teach," Do-hyun replied. "Help others learn what my world taught me. Make sure that no one is ever left behind just because they come from a difficult place." "You changed everything," Minji observed. "One human changed 300 years of policy." Do-hyun shook his head. "I just showed people what was already there. Every species has the potential to overcome. They just need someone to believe in them." He stood up and looked out at the galaxy. Somewhere out there were worlds waiting to be explored, challenges waiting to be overcome, people waiting to be saved. And Do-hyun smiled because he knew that humanity and all the other Deathworld species would be ready. They had survived impossible odds before. They would do it again. The galaxy had no idea what it was in for, and that was exactly how Do-hyun liked it.